if personality is so key to standing out from the crowd, why are so many brands so generic? I see so many brands out there that really just lack personality. It can be hard to know how much personality to put in there, but today we're gonna fight back against that. In this video, I'm gonna talk to you about how to use mood boards, a really essential part of my design process, to translate your own personality into your brand, into the look and feel of your brand. We're gonna talk about why mood boards matter. I'm gonna walk you through my process. We're gonna do one together, and hopefully you'll walk away learning how to create your own mood board for your very own brand. Let's go. All right, thank you so much for joining me here. I'm Liz Marie. I'm a brand strategist, designer, creative director, all things branding. I have been making mood boards for years. Honestly, it's just how I think. I think in visuals. So whenever I'm working on a project with a client, I can't help but start to picture ideas in my head, reference points, photos, colors, all of this stuff is just starting to shape up in my mind in general. So why are mood boards so important in the creative process? Let me tell you a story. Have you ever had someone just start talking to you right in the middle of the conversation? Like they're just jumping right into the action and you have no idea what's going on. You're like, hold up, back up, give me some context. Who was there? Set the scene. Like what's going on right now? You just dove in like we'd been talking for weeks. That's how I feel when someone starts the design process with the logo. You don't have any context. You don't have any vision for what the brand itself is supposed to look like. You need the big picture. What is the vibe we're trying to create until you can get into the little details like the logo. I mean, logos are important, but they're not everything. They're just one piece of this whole brand puzzle. So mood boards are like that first pass at capturing the vision of a brand. What is it supposed to look and feel like? What's the vibe we're trying to create? And from there, you can use that to guide all of the other stuff. The type, the colors, yes, the logo, the photography, all the stuff that comes after it. If you don't set that stage, if you don't create that vision, what are you working towards? All of those things are gonna be disconnected. You're working like with the little bitty pieces and you're not getting the big picture. I think it's a really essential step in the design process. Not everyone thinks this way and not all designers do it, but it has really been key for me. It kind of helps me set the objective for the whole branding project. It's something I can measure against. I create a mood board. Usually I'll create multiple options for a client. They'll give me their feedback, I'll make some tweaks, and once we've landed on the right one, I can judge all of the other stuff and see, all right, how well does it echo back to that mood board? Does it capture that mood? And if I'm doing my job right, it will. So it's also really good for my clients because they have something to level set against. They have something to judge the creative against. It's a really important part of the process, and it's where you start to see how all of the things are gonna shape up. How do we pull in this part of the personality and this idea that I like and this thing that I like? How do I get all of those things in one place and kind of edit out the stuff that doesn't work and bring in the pieces that do? And as I mentioned, this is all really important because the personality of your brand is one of its biggest differentiators. You'll hear me all the time talk about how branding itself will set your company apart, how it is the hugest differentiator, but the personality within that, just the personality that you're conveying in your packaging, in your social media posts, in the tone of voice that you use, and how you talk to your customers, all of that is really gonna set you apart from someone else that does exactly what you do, but isn't uniquely you. So let's talk process. When I am going to create a mood board for a client, it all starts with brainstorming. So I start all of my projects either with strategy, and that's a really in-depth research process, so I'm getting tons of insights and I'm asking a million questions, I'm learning so much about the brand. Or if it's just for design, we're still doing a pretty big deep dive up front. They're filling out a questionnaire. I'm asking all these questions to my client about what they like and don't like, and I'm trying to get to know their audience. And that's a really critical part. We want to know, who is this for? Yes, it's important to capture your personality as a brand, but it's also important that that resonates with your ideal customer, your ideal client, your dream audience. They have to connect. We're trying to match these two things together. So what part of your personality is going to connect with who they are? And if those are a little match made in heaven, we're in good shape. So first, brainstorm who your audience is. What are they like? What are they into? Next, what's the vibe that we want to create? I know I keep saying that, but that's just the way I express it. It's a feeling, it's colors and scents and smells and emotions. It's all of the stuff that we're trying to capture. And so when you're brainstorming that, think about what are the words or feelings that you're trying to convey with this. When I was rebranding myself, I wanted it to feel moody and mysterious and a little quirky and kind of sexy. Like, I'm a Scorpio, those are like very Scorpio words. But then you also want to start brainstorming somewhat more specific. So are there certain colors or visuals or reference points? So for example, I did a brand for a sexologist, and she was very specific that she didn't want to use actual nudity or really even the typical representations of sex. She wanted pictures of beds, of like really sexy bedrooms. When we went into the mood board process, I knew that that was something I was going to be looking for. Colors are a great reference point. A lot of us have favorite colors or colors that we hate. And colors also have so many emotions and so much psychology tied to them that if there are any that stand out immediately, that's a great point to brainstorm off of. Another one that I love is textures. Is it soft? Is it rough? Is it metallic? Are there any textures that just feel right with the brand that you have, the business that you have, or that just feel right to you? There are great examples, like if you're in something natural, there's gonna be tons of natural textures or photos of natural textures, whether that's like leaves or grass or clouds or whatever it may be. If you're in construction, you might do close-ups of wood or concrete or something like that. For me and my branding, I love animal print. I love kind of contrast, so like really soft luxurious stuff with like hard metallic steel. And those are just some of the things that started to come up for me. And then the last piece of just kind of capturing the vibe is, are you in a specific industry? You want to think about what are the visuals or graphics or kind of the touchstones of the industry that you're in. There are certain things that represent skincare. There are certain things that represent the movie industry. Like whatever industry that you're in, there's iconography that people just understand in culture that you can draw from. Now, you don't want to be generic and you don't want to like borrow too much or lean too heavily on those, but they're good reference points and jumping off points. So the next step is looking for images, sourcing photos for your mood board. And my favorite places to go to browse images are number one, Pinterest. It's usually the main source that I use, and I'll talk more about that. I also use Design Inspiration. I'll link to it below. It's a great source of art, design, just random stuff. It's a good like search engine. I also use Dribbble if I'm looking for something really design specific, like logos or web interfaces or something like that. I'm always on Instagram and using Instagram and saving stuff, but I actually rarely come back to it for my mood boards. Just a preference, but there's tons of content on Instagram to pull from if that's your thing. And then I know a lot of people are Tumblr people, or maybe that's, you know, my generation way back when, but Tumblr is just full of pretty pictures and it's another great source of inspiration. But for me, Pinterest is really my go-to. I like to start with just searching for one of those ideas that I had. So in that example of the sexologist, I might search for like sexy bedrooms or something like that. It's about just getting like one jumping off point, and then you're gonna like leapfrog, you know, down the rabbit hole to mix metaphors, and you kind of don't know where it's gonna take you. Now, a few tips I have learned from using Pinterest for a million years. One is if you add the word aesthetic at the end of pretty much anything you're searching for, you're more likely to get the visuals you're looking for, especially if the term could be like a product. If you just search that term, you might get the product. If you add the word aesthetic at the end, you'll get like pretty pictures. Another tip, if you find a pin or photo that is right along the vein of what you're looking for, there are going to be related pins at the bottom. And then once you start adding them to a board, you will start to get the More Pins tab, which will show you related pins or suggestions for other pins to add to your board. You kind of need a good amount already on your board before this actually starts to work. But once you do, you can find some really, really good stuff on there. So Pinterest does a great job of making suggestions for what to add to your board that will be right along the same vein of what you're already into. One word of advice when you're looking for ideas for your brand, be careful not to look too much at competitors. An example is if I'm designing a logo for that sexologist, let's say, just to keep using this example, and I want to use a bed in the logo. I will probably search bed logos just to see what people are doing and what's out there, but you don't want to get stuck on looking at that to the point where you're mimicking or you can't think of other ideas that are beyond there. So it's good to look at other visuals within your industry, in skincare, in fashion, in whatever industry you're in, to see what other people are doing, but just like a passing glance. Don't dig into it too much, or you're gonna limit yourself and not be able to come up with new ideas that are actually unique and stand out. Once you have a good amount of images, like let's say 30, sometimes I go like really crazy and really dig into the process. Once you have a good vat of images to work from, then you start to put it all together. Now, I usually use Adobe Illustrator. It's what I use for all of my design work, and it's just the medium I feel most comfortable working in. I've been using it for almost 15 years now, but I also have used Canva for quick design stuff for clients, and Canva has a free version if you don't have an Adobe subscription or don't know how to use Adobe Illustrator. So Canva works too, or of course you could print out photos and do it on paper, or you could do it in PowerPoint. And honestly, the options are pretty endless. Like whatever program is gonna allow you to move around photos. Google Slides is another good one. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, just have the ability to add a bunch of photos and easily move them around. And once you do that, it's time to put them all together. So I'm actually gonna hop on my computer right now and show you how I approach taking all of these different pieces and fitting them together into a cohesive mood board, and how to capture the personality that I'm really going for. So I'm here in Adobe Illustrator. This is what I usually use to create my mood boards. I have a template linked down below, as well as one for Canva, but you can use honestly any program where you can place photos. So I created a quick little design brief for this mood board that I'm going to create. It's totally fake, totally made up, but we're gonna pretend I am doing a mood board for a luxury boutique hotel in downtown LA. And you can get a little glimpse here at the vibe that I'm going for. Very edgy, moody, modern glam, targeting Gen Z millennials, younger millennials, influencers. It has to be very Instagrammable. Here's a little mini profile of a persona for this brand. Now you would want yours to be much more detailed than this, but it's just a starting point because this is fake. The mood is sexy, modern, edgy, but not all uptight, not that type of glamorous, not that type of money. And so some of the references: modern art, black, whites, neutrals. If you watch my last video on how to look expensive, you know that a black and white color palette is really the hallmark of a luxury or high-end looking brand. Plus pops of color, metallics, some of these really fun textures that are rich and luxurious, plus some unexpected or irreverent details that is going to give it that youthful, playful vibe. So I actually, in the interest of time, already created a Pinterest board for this. Pinterest is my favorite place to find image resources, and I found a ton. So there's like way more pins here than I would ever need, but I just started to pull out some of my favorites. So we have some textures, some detail shots, some art or fabric, some hotel interiors. There's kind of lifestyle stuff, champagne. This is more like art installations, close-ups, views, little jewelry details, all of these kinds of things that are going to shape this lifestyle. And not all of these are actually right for this brand. They're just ideas. So I'm just kind of pulling in inspiration. And here we have some logos or design inspiration. Now, as I mentioned, you don't want to go too far in looking at your industry for inspiration. You want to kind of reference it, but not focus on it so much that you can't be creative. So in the interest of time, is actually my second time recording this because I wanted to be pretty efficient. I've already pulled in a bunch of images that I want to start with. And so the one that jumped out at me most is a super fun pattern texture right here. So I'm going to use this as a starting point. I'm going to put it in the top left corner. I'm actually going to scale this down and make a clipping mask. So this is going to be like what I'm going to build off of. And one of the things I'm trying to do is make this clear line of color so that you can follow the color throughout the whole thing. So I'm going to put, next I'm going to do the champagne, and this one has some of those same colors and textures in it. Make this clipping mask. I'm going to adjust it so you get more of that like gold and orange. So we're carrying that through, and then maybe I'll add another texture here. I don't want to overdo it on the textures. You need to have some balance, but we're going to try that. So we get like this really cool vein going through of lots of vibrant pops of color. Then we're gonna work around that with some of the more neutrals. So this one is like a hotel signage, kind of room number. That's kind of cool and really simple and minimal. So balancing out really vibrant color with really simple stuff. And these are both pretty close up shots and pretty simple. So here we've got like white space and we've got a lot going on. We'll also maybe pull in this guy, maybe not yet. Here's another one that I really love. So maybe we'll add this like right here in the bottom, this cool curtain. So we're getting into some more textures. And this one's showing how we're balancing like this dark edgy stuff with the really vibrant pops of color. We gotta throw some actual hotel in here. So let's start. This was one of my favorites because it's got the palm trees. It's like a classic LA shot. And maybe I'll start with it here. So this one, you can see this has like this kind of wood or gold, I'm not sure, maybe it's wood. And that really goes well with the tongue and groove ceiling here. This is also a portrait image, so it might not capture the whole thing. I don't always do mood boards in these little squares. Sometimes I do it more freeform, but this one works for me. So this isn't the perfect crop for this image, but I do want to get that kind of wood color in there, so we'll go with that. Actually, you know, I could try, you may want to try like the crop so you can kind of zoom in. So here I'm just getting a little bit more of the detailed view. That's kind of cool. I think I'll end up moving this one because it's too much black next to each other. So let's just move it over. We'll kind of swap these guys. We'll put over here. Let's see what else we want to add. I want to add a view. Actually want to add, let's add more black. I definitely want to use this like snakeskin texture. Let's do this one here. Add some more black. So we've kind of got a black line going through here. This one has a lot of white in it, so we want to balance that out. So maybe this one goes here. It's much more light colored. Now, if I'm doing this for a client, I'm gonna like obsess over this and get them in the absolutely perfect order and spend a lot of time fine-tuning and putting the perfect things in there. Obviously, this is just a quick little tutorial. So let's say that this is our leading lady. I think we can add her here. Let's see how that goes. And this is really just off of like the feel of what feels right, what feels like they go together. It's totally no right or wrong answer, but just, yeah, kind of do what feels right. So she's right here with her wine or her champagne right next to the champagne there. That's kind of cool. We're gonna pull in this one, just a little bit of typography, which is nice. That, pull it back. Clipping mask. All right, let's do two more just to kind of fill this in. So we need maybe another interior shot. I do like, let's see, this is probably one of my favorites, but I don't want it to be too gray next to that gray. So we'll put it here. There we go. So we've got like that art, that kind of interior moodiness. Maybe one more, another detail. I really like all of these, so this is tough. Maybe we'll go with this Stay Wild. For me, the hardest thing is like I want all of them and you have to narrow it down. So yeah, maybe edit this so that the Stay Wild is like really right there and we see that gold detail, move it down. Yeah, and then this is like a pretty strong line of like white and gold. I might want to switch that up, but for now I think it's okay. It's not perfect, but it's a good start. Okay, so what's next? After you've created this mood board using the tips that I just provided, you have your mood board. What do you do with it? Once it's spot on, I use it as a source. It's where I pull colors from. So I'll use a little color picker and start to pull out my color palette. If there are any examples of typography in there, which I usually try to include, I'll use those as a starting point for a logo design or the type to include in the brand identity. And I'll start to use it for reference for the photography style or the textures or the patterns that I want to use in that brand identity. Start to pull out those individual elements that create that mood. I think that's one of the most challenging things for non-designers is you may have a great sense of what you like, you know your style, you know the aesthetic that appeals to you, but you just don't necessarily know how to break it down into the individual components of design and in the individual components of your brand. And a mood board can help with that because you're breaking this aesthetic into, 9 or 10 or however many different photos. So it's breaking into smaller chunks, and you can start to pinpoint what are the things about each of these things that I really like that are resonating with me. Using your mood board that has captured your personality, that is the basis for the brand identity that you're building. To recap, your brand should absolutely have a personality, a strong personality. That is one of the biggest differentiators of your brand. And if you don't know where to start to pull in your own personality, especially if it is a personal brand. Start to just build out what you like and create an aesthetic around your personality. Start with the mood, the vibe, the feeling that you're trying to capture, and make sure that you are connecting your personality to your audience so that you will resonate and have a match made in heaven. And if you would like a little help with this, I have created a couple of pretty simple templates, just like the one you just saw me use for Adobe Illustrator and for Canva, that you are free to download and use to create your own mood board. And if you create one, shout me out. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see how your brand is shaping up. All right, y'all, if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff down there. And check me out at LizMarieStrategy or LizMarieStrategy.com.